With everybody here.
Right now, today.
You mean right meow?
Right meow, today. The ratio of boys to girls.
No, just in our section.
I don't want the whole class. In your section. Brandon, in your section.
That's just so stupid.
And stop. Now,
No, it's not here.
ratio of boys to girls is 4 to 4. And you would write it like, anyone know how you'd write it? Yeah, like the clock with a colon in the middle. So 4, boop, boop, to 4. Now, it is important that you understand, in this case it's not, but it's important that you understand that order matters. 4 to 4 is the same as 4 to 4 if you reversed it. But one of the other groups is going to have it different. We'll talk about that in a second. This section. Go.
4 to 5.
4 to 5. And that section?
No one did it there.
2 to 2. Nailed it. So, unfortunately for us and my example, these aren't great examples because they're the same. But this one here is fine. Now,
Yeah, middle rules.
Now, when you guys are looking at these ratios, order matters. I said boys to girls, so the boys number must be first. There's not any choice in that matter. Because if I said girls to boys, what would you write? Go? 5 to 4 instead. And this is review, and it's really easy review. Now, there are two types of ratios. Part to part and part to whole. So I want you guys to tell me, are these part to part or are they part to whole? Go? They are part to part. Because there's one part, which are boys, one part, which are girls, and then the whole thing would be everybody together. So can you guys rewrite the top one here as part to whole? What would it be then?
What part though?
Girls. We'll say boys to whole. Or girls to whole. It won't actually make a difference in this one because the numbers are the same. Go? 4 to 8. What about, let's do for the middle one, let's do girls to whole.
Whole like class.
The whole group, the whole section you're considering. Oh, you? 5 to 9. Actually, Daniel. I'm going to use names. And then the last section. Anybody?
2 to 2.
2 to 2 is what it currently is. That's part to part. 2 to 4 would be part to whole. Good. Now, there are other ways of writing these. Generally speaking, part to part is often written like this. And part to whole is often written in fraction form. I'm going to wait. It's often written in fraction form instead. Just get it done is what I would like. Thank you. That there are equivalent... I lost everything. The thing I need you guys to understand is that there's another way to write them, and I think you've seen this before. Part to part is often written this way with the colon in the middle. Part to whole is often written as a fraction. And that should make sense. 2 out of 4 is the way you normally talk about these things anyway, and so we often write those as fractions. You can write the other ones as fractions too if it helps you. And for the most part, you're going to when you use proportions. Now, do you guys remember what proportions are compared to ratios? Proportions are just like 2 equal ratios. So if I had 4 to 8, what's another ratio that would be similar? Yeah, like 2 over 4 is the same. Because it's really telling you 2 of these for every 4 of those is the same as 4 of these for every 8 of those. It's really the idea like common denominators with fractions again. So you're just trying to find equal fractions and things that work. And we've just done this a ton, so it should be fairly straightforward. You can use those sometimes if you're given a question that looks like there are, and I'll use the same numbers, there are 2, or sorry, I'll use the other one. There are 4 boys to 5 girls. If there are 20 girls, how many boys are there?
18.
And you could use this to figure it out. And a lot of people can sort of quickly, it's not going to be 18, go?
16.
It's going to be 16. And the reason why is, think about this. These are my girls. What did I have to do to get 20 girls from my original one? Times by 4. So I'm going to do the same thing to the other one.
Oh.
And that's going to be 16. Does that make sense? So this is like the rule that you would follow. For every 5, I need to have 4. And then you would just multiply them through. Very often, people will write these like this. 4 to 5 is equal to b over 20. And if you do this, you could think, well, there's common denominators. The other thing you could do is just get that b by itself. And how do I do that? Right now, it's b over 20. How would I get rid of an over 20, the divided by 20? Right now, it is dividing by 20. So what do? Multiply both sides by 20. So I could change that to, and with less friendly numbers, this is what you're going to do more often than not. 20 times 4 over 5 equals b. So all I did was I took this 20 and I multiplied both sides by 20. So this is now going to have a times 20 up here. And this is just going to cancel out. And then I could solve that, and it's going to end up being the same. 20 times 4 equals 80 over 5. And 80 over 5 is 16. So I get that this way is way easier. But they're not always going to be so friendly, the numbers. So sometimes this is just going to be the easy way to do it.
Wait,
There's also something called cross multiplication that we'll talk about a little bit later. Yeah?
Can you just divide the 20 by 5 and get
Yeah, you'd get that if you did 20 divided by 5, you would know that the factor is 4, so you'd multiply the same thing up top and you'd do it. Yeah, totally.
so it works?
It's just like common denominators that way, yeah. But the numbers aren't always that easy. It's not always going to be so easy to just spot that. But you could. Yeah? Cool? Cool. Here's the problem. On a school trip, the ratio of teachers to students is 2 to 21. The ratio of boys to girls is 4 to 3. If there are 18 girls on the trip, how many boys are there and how many teachers are there?
How does that change the teachers?
Because, that was a good question. It said, how does that change the teachers? The only information I have is that there are 18 girls. How does that affect the teachers? Because once you know that there are 18 girls, can you figure out how many boys there are?
Yeah.
If you know how many girls there are and boys, can you figure out how many students there are? Yeah, because that's all the boys and girls. And then if I know how many students there are, can I figure out how many teachers there are? Yeah. That's the only hint I'm going to give you. With the people around you, give it a shot, and then we'll talk about it in a second.
it's so easy.
Let's walk through this together, guys. I think some kids are saying it's easy and that's good. I think part of it is that it gets a little bit easier when I say what I said at the very beginning of that problem. Does that make sense? Where I point out, oh, if you find this one, you can find this one. If you find this, you can find the rest. Again, none of the math in ratios is going to be difficult. The actual calculating. Most of it you can probably do in your head. It's the problem-solving element which is going to make it more difficult. So what order do I solve things in order to find everything? So, what did you do first? On a school trip, ratio of teachers to students is 2 to 21. Boys to girls is 4 to 3. If there are 18 girls on the trip, how many boys are there? How many teachers? What did you do first? Go.
I figure out how much I had to multiply 3 to get 18. So I figure out that I had to multiply 3 times 6 to get 18.
So you were thinking something along the lines of this, like 3 to 18 is times 6?
Yeah.
So then you did what?
And then I did the same to boys. So 4 times 6 equals 24.
So you did that. There, you did it times 6, and you got that boys equals 24?
Yeah.
And then what did you do?
And then what I did is I added up the boys and girls. So 24 plus 18 equals 42.
Okay. Good?
And to figure out teachers, what I did is I figured out what I had to times by to get 42.
So 21 to 42 is times 2?
Yeah.
And then so you did 2 to teachers?
Yep.
Then what there is a times 2. And so you got teachers is 4. Correct? Cool. That's one way to do it. I love it. That is using common sense. And please, please, please don't underestimate the value of using common sense to solve ratio problems. Here's how I would do it. Or is there another way? Sorry, let me ask first. Did anyone else use actual like ratios and proportions? A lot of you use like ratio thinking and proportional thinking to do that. But you can actually use ratios and proportions. So here's how I would do it. The 4 to 3 is boys to girls, right? And that's going to equal boys to 18, correct?
Yeah.
That's now getting close to what I would like to see. So 4 over 3 equals boys over 18. What do I do to get boys by itself?
Divide.
Times 18. So now it's going to be 18 times 4 over 3 is boys. 18 times 4 is 72. 72 divided by 3 is 24. So boys equals 24. Then I would do exactly what she did. Boys plus girls equals, do you have a question, Sean?
No.
Okay.
I'll just stretch.
24 plus 18, which equals 42. And then I would do the exact same thing again. Except this time I would use the teacher's ratio. So 2 to 21 equals teachers to 42. And then I would 2 over 21 equals t over 42. And then I would just multiply by 42. I'm going to try and squish this down a little bit. So then we would have 42 times 2 over 21 equals t. And I know that that's going to be 4. Now, in my head, even what I'm honestly thinking, guys, is that 21 goes into 42 twice. 2 times 2 is 4. That's why that's easy to do in my head. And if I was over here, I would do the same thing. 3 goes into 18 6 times. 6 times 4 is 24. That's why that gets manageable in your head. And you know that this bottom number is going to go into the top number you're putting over here most of the time. Make sense? Are there any questions about ratios and proportions? No. Good. Just to sum up, these are ratios by themselves. Once you make them equal to another one, they are proportions. If there's one more thing I could explain, it is this. When you have a variable like 2 to 21 equals teachers to 42, when you are switching those into fractions, put the variable, put the letter, the thing you don't know, on top. Don't do this. Don't do 21 over 2 equals 42 over t. Because now what do I have to do to get that t by itself? I would have to multiply by t, then I would have to multiply by 2, then I would have to divide by 21. And that's a lot more work. So, if you ever do this by accident, don't freak out. Just do this. Because you can, as long as you flip both, you're good. Because then it's still the same. It is still teachers to teachers and students to students. And it doesn't matter which is on top in a proportion as long as you match them. The same thing is on top. So as long as you had boys and boys on top and girls, and you flipped it, you're good.